Hello. So we are in week 5 of managing services contemporary issues. I will continue from where I left off yesterday, and we are discussing about positioning, segmentation, targeting and positioning, and creating a value proposition which customers will love. So we were discussing yesterday this particular diagram because this is very closely associated with the whole concept of positioning, which fundamentally means creating a set of values for a certain targeted group of customers. So that is why positioning is very closely allied to segmentation, market segmentation, customer identification, deeply understanding the persona, the behavior of customers, and creating an unassailable, attractive package of value propositions for them. We discussed yesterday that most excellent, globally recognized services often start in this quadrant, which we call fully focused. That means a service package which is focused on a particular market segment with a particular package of offering. Like we discussed yesterday, Arvind Eye Care Hospital started as an eye care facility in southern India in Madurai for consumers at the bottom of the economic pyramid, economically deprived consumers. So geography was very focused. The target market was very clearly identified, and the service offered was cataract, treating cataract, operating on patients impaired with impaired vision due to calcification of their lenses, retinal lenses called cataract. So they created the processes, they created the employee competence on the basis of this market focus and this service focus. Once they establish and once they master that particular art and science of that particular service package, then there are different trajectories that are open to them. So we also discussed yesterday Bhajahori Manna, a specialized high quality Bengali cuisine offered in modern ambience, traditional food in modern ambience in modern facilities. So we discussed that Bhajahori Manna, and similarly there are other examples like Karim's, a very famous establishment in Delhi for Mughlai food. They started in Old Delhi. They were there for many years. Now they have another branch in South Delhi, some small outlets for delivery, but they are basically Delhi focused. On the other hand, there is Sagar, a very famous South Indian restaurant in Delhi. They started in a small establishment in South Delhi, but they became so good in what they were doing, they were able to take over many of their large competitors, and today they are spread all over Delhi, all over North India, many other cities of India, and even they have branches abroad. So as we see here that businesses start as fully focused, good businesses, service businesses, focused on a particular service, focused on a particular market segment. Over time, like Arvind today, they continue to be focused on that same market, the same market. So number of markets served remains for them same. They are primarily very um, true to their mission of serving the downtrodden, serving the economically weak customer segments with high quality global standard eye care service. But within eye care, they have now cataract, which was their original service, cataract operation, but they have added so many different types of other eye treatments, whether for diabetic retinopathy, macular degeneration, for glaucoma, for different kinds of other complex eye diseases. So, there is now a wide range of services that are available from them in that domain, of course. They are not getting into other medical areas, but in a way, therefore, Arvind has moved from this quadrant to this quadrant, Arvind today. Same market, but many services. On the other hand, Bhajohari Manna or CCD, Starbucks, many of these famous service outlets, they are focused on the services. So, Bhajohari Manna, Bengali cuisine, Coffee Cafe Day or Starbucks on coffee, the third place experience. So, but they serve many markets. They serve very upmarket in Bombay, they serve business market in other cities. CCD serves institutions like IITs and many other locations. So, their value proposition remain the same. They are in the same kind of food and beverage business, but they serve number of different types of customers. So, in short, businesses start usually here and they go in this direction or they go in this direction. So, either a narrow service offering to many different types of markets or wide range of services offered to a narrowly defined market segment. I had requested you yesterday that you combine this understanding of positioning with these sets of questions in front of you in these 6 blocks, starting with what is the value proposition for our current service products and which market segment we are targeting, what customers we serve now and which ones would we like to target, what does our firm stand for in the minds of the current and potential customers, how does each of our service products differ from our competitors. These are some new ideas. So, these you see are more internal factors, and here there are some external factors, that how does each of our service products differ from our competitors, how well do our target customers perceive our service as meeting their needs, and what change must we make to strengthen our competitive position. So, these are input steps, these are internal decisions, that what value proposition we want to offer, what customers we want to serve, what position in the customer's mind we want to create, and we look at external factors, that how do we compare with competitors and how we meet customer needs at what level, with what differential respect to competitors. Now, this is, I requested you to create, identify, either create a new service idea or identify a service you are familiar with and understand in terms of the previous 4 quadrants where they are, and then try to identify the answer to these 6 blocks of questions. We did not discuss it in that detail, but there are businesses which are unfocused. So, there can be the big bazaar type, where it is a different types of products for different types of people, very or even say for example State Bank of India as opposed to Grameen Bank, So, Grameen Bank by its very name, it is focused on villages, it is focused on serving as a particular type of economic profile of customers. But State Bank of India, even their value proposition is that they serve all kinds of customers. They serve the diversity of India. They are spread all over India. They serve a customer who has only 500 rupees deposit, and they serve a customer who has 500 crores of deposit. So, but this is a very difficult position to be everything to everybody. So, fundamentally we therefore identify these two different, market focused and service focused. We have discussed that. Unfocused we just now discussed, and in this obviously there is always a danger, and it is often quite difficult to retain the preeminent position like State Bank of India, yet maintain a high quality of service. There are companies like General Electric or even our own State Bank of India who have been able to maintain high level of service excellence in spite of their wide variety of offerings, in spite of the wide variety of markets they serve. But most often good strategy is to create a distinctive STP, a distinctive position serving a distinctly identified segment of customers with a very distinctive set of offerings as a target. So, fundamentally therefore, how do we select target segments will in a way influence how we will create our portfolio of values. It is easier to match or exceed offerings when it is directed to the same segment. This is where you can actually create a value proposition which goes far beyond the mere profit potential, as we saw in case of Arvind. It is difficult to create that kind of missionary superordinate greatness if you are trying to be everything to everybody. But in a service focused or market focused positioning, it is possible to create great service like Starbucks or Coffee Cafe Day or Arvind Eye Care or Bhajahari Manna and so on. Now we come to another important understanding that this positioning, when it is created, it is usually a bundle. There are a number of things within that positioning set of values. So, it is a set of values, not one single value. We often call also these individual items in the value proposition as attributes, and these attributes are of two different types. One is important attribute. Now, important attribute, for example, in airline service, safety will be an important attribute. But what happens, because it is important, because it is almost mandatory, you cannot survive as an airline service unless you ensure top class security and safety for your passengers, for your aircraft. So, for both the people you serve and the machines or systems that you use to serve must be safe and secure. So, it is important. No passenger, no customer will choose an airline which does not portray, does not convey that sense of security and safety. But once this is done, that means you have this, you have crossed this entry barrier, you have provided that level of assurance with respect to safety, security, you will be in the arena with number of other players who have also similarly qualified. And at that stage, customers will make their decision, will make their choice which airlines to fly based on number of other attributes. So, they are not as important as safety and security, which is mandatory. But these other sets of attributes are determinants. They are called determinant attributes because the customer uses those attributes to determine which airlines to fly from a cluster of airlines available to them who all have qualified for safety and security. These are like say fare or their schedule, departure arrival time and so on. So, these are or their economy class pricing or their kind of other benefits available, check-in time or assistance for aged and senior citizens, availability of wheelchair and so on. So, there are a whole lot of them, they all can be, there also there is a hierarchy of needs that will be met, and depending on the type of customer. So, obviously, a senior citizen traveling alone will be looking for that determinant attribute which enables him or her. So, like availability of companion, availability of wheelchair, availability of seats which are amenable to the wheelchair, etc. Those will become then the determinant attributes. On the other hand, for a young family going on holiday, perhaps the fare and the flight schedules will be, the timings will become more important set of attributes. So, these two sets of attributes, important attributes are like gate pass, are like you must meet that level of standard to be in the play. But once you are in the play, then there will be other sets which we are calling determinant, which will determine that whether you will be the successful choice, the preferred choice for the customer or not. So, positioning therefore, as we were discussing a little while back when we looked at those 6 blocks, depend on internal decisions and internal analysis, as well as internal analysis means that where do we want to go, which customers we are serving today, which kind of customers we want to serve tomorrow, etc. These are all internal decisions, and there are sets of external decisions. Who are our current customers, current competitors, how do we compare with them, who will be our future competitors and how are we going to compete against them, these kind of issues. So, therefore, it needs internal analysis as well as external competitive analysis and so on, market analysis. And obviously, like we were talking about segmentation, which is so linked to positioning, segmentation needs the kind of analysis like the size of the segment, its growth rate, measurability, accessibility, how the segment may be very attractive, but do you have the proper kind of infrastructure to access that segment. So, there may be an excellent segment for your kind of service in Northeast India, but do you have the infrastructure to access the that sort of remote market. So, these things you have to determine. So, fundamentally that is why I say that there is a set of internal analysis, organization's resources, limitations, goals, values, and you have to do external analysis, not only the competitor, but also the structure of the market, the rules and the regulations, the non-price barriers if any and so on. So, this diagram which is in front of you here, that gives you a very composite and comprehensive understanding that to create your segmentation, targeting, positioning based marketing action plan will be based on analyzing customer segment, creating the identification for your target segment, and then articulate your desired position package of values for that target segment, and very clear articulation that what benefits will be offered through your value proposition, and analyze how you will differentiate, how will you maintain that differentiation. So I often, I think I mentioned this in the previous class also, that we have to answer these three fundamental questions, that why will anybody buy this service, why will they buy from us, and why will they continue to buy from us. This why will they buy from us and why will they continue to buy from us is what is called the differentiation, competitive differentiation and continuing differentiation. So this differentiation is not static, it needs to evolve as the competitors will come up with new offerings. You have to have a response mechanism. Sometimes you should be ahead of your competitors and not be complacent. If you are in a dominant position, don't actually be complacent. You create new value proposition irrespective of where you are, knowing that your competitors are always biting at your heels. So therefore, you need to be always one up. And this marketing action plan is based on these, and these are derived. That means which market segment, what kind of value proposition. These are derived out of our market analysis, size, composition, location, trends, and etc., growth trend. Internal analysis of resources, reputation, constraint, values, etc. And of course, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, competitive analysis. So based on this set of analysis, we derive these objectives and targets and value proposition, and then with that we create our marketing action plan. We will have a later discussion towards the end of this whole course, where we will again look at, when we talk about creating the grand marketing plan and the tactical marketing, so marketing strategy and marketing plan, we will revisit this particular issue. And as I was mentioning, as you see on this slide, that your value proposition as well as your differentiation will not be static. It will move, it will evolve in response to competitors, and better is that you move ahead of the competitor, you anticipate what the competitor's response will be and you be ahead of them. I will conclude with this approach, which is called positioning maps. Very easy, now that if you have followed the earlier discussion, that if you are suppose creating a new hotel, then we will create this simple 2 by 2 structure. Say on y axis we have cost to be paid by price to be paid by the customer. So expensive, less expensive, moderate service and high service. So high service and expensive, this is kind of a 5-star position for a hotel, but there can be multiple other choices. Like for example, it can be less expensive but reasonably good service. Many business hotels position themselves like this, or somewhere in this region. So they are mid-price range and very utility, very function oriented, may not be much of luxury, but good service, reliable service. Or sometimes deliberately motels or one-night hotels or roadside hotels, highway side hotels, or station hotels located near the railway station or near the airport, where people just come for a few hours and to catch the next flight. You may actually just position as based on less expensive and with kind of moderate service. So all these positions are tenable. There are hotels with all these different types of positions because there are different types of customers, and we don't need to be everything to everybody, as I discussed before. So you segment your customer, target them, and therefore you position them accordingly. And this creating this map is very useful because it explains to you where your gaps are, where there are already clusters of competitors and which is relatively less busy segment on the map, and accordingly you can decide where to be. So this map therefore is a very useful way of creating. So predictions can be made of even that where your current position is and where you need to go, or where you can go, or where your competitive threats can come from. So that is why we say charts and maps can facilitate visual awakening. So it is kind of a visual reminder, it is all the time, it helps all the employees to be on the same page, to understand very clearly. So as it says that one picture is worth 1,000 words. So this kind of mapping is therefore very good for visual clarity and consensus of views across the organization, and it often helps actually to portray to the customer where you are. So as we discussed, to summarize, focus strategies: fully focused, service focused, market focused, and unfocused. We discussed these segments. We discussed about market segmentation, and where buyers have common characteristics, needs, purchasing behavior, and consumption pattern. And we discussed that actually this is very important, and this focusing and identification of the segment, they go kind of interactively hand in hand. And we discussed about service attributes, determinant attributes, and important attributes. And lastly, we discussed how to do the positioning by doing market analysis, internal analysis, and competitive analysis. And we concluded by saying that positioning map is very good because it helps us to visualize our strategic position, and it helps us to bring everybody on the same page within the organization, and it helps us to portray to the customer what we stand for. So this is where we end today, and tomorrow we will take up that how from positioning we go to branding. Thank you.